Welcome to the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm Tammy Stacklehouse, fibromyalgia coach, author, and founder of the International Fibromyalgia Coaching Institute. The goal of this podcast is to empower you with access to the dream team of experts and coaches I've discovered are key to living the fibro life you love. From the comfort of your own home, and maybe even your pajamas, I'll help you take back control of your life and health. To help out with fibro fog, I always include full show notes and additional resources at fibromyalgiapodcast.com. Welcome to the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm your coach, Tammy Stacklehouse, and this is episode 178. Twice a year, I share our Fibromyalgia Stories of Hope episodes, opportunities for you to hear directly from people living with fibromyalgia who have found ways to feel better. I love these episodes because honestly, there just aren't enough stories like these out in the world. Stories of people with fibromyalgia who actually got better. Too often, we're told, this is just how it is. There's nothing more we can do, or you'll need to learn to live with your new normal. Fibromyalgia can be debilitating. It can change your life, but it is absolutely not true that nothing can be done. And the stories you're about to hear are proof of that. Today's episode is a replay of interviews recorded live during our most recent Stories of Hope event, where graduates of our Certified Fibromyalgia Advisor and Certified Fibromyalgia Coach programs shared what changed for them, what helped, and what they wish they'd known sooner. These are not miracle stories. They are not about pushing harder or finding the magic fix. They are about learning how to work with your body instead of against it and finding support that actually fits your life. Now, before we begin, I want to share one important update because it directly relates to why these stories matter. Fibromyalgia is one of the most common chronic pain conditions, and yet most healthcare professionals receive little formal education about it. That education gap is one of the reasons so many patients are left trying to figure things out on their own. For example, only about 9 hours of medical school is actually dedicated to pain management training here in the United States. That's an average. Some schools do better, some not so much, but about 9 hours. That is all pain management. That's not 9 hours of fibromyalgia. That's chronic pain. That's acute pain. That is all pain. And so I am proud to share that our Certified Fibromyalgia Advisor and Certified Fibromyalgia Coach programs are now approved to offer ANCC accredited continuing education contact hours through our partnership with the American Nurse Coach Association. The ANCC, or American Nurses Credentialing Center, if you're not familiar with what ANCC stands for, it's the American Nurses Credentialing Center. They are the gold standard for professional development for nurses and other professionals. This means that nurses and physical therapists and doctors and counselors, that these other professions can now earn accredited continuing education for our courses while learning truly fibromyalgia-specific, patient-centered care. And it means the work you're hearing reflected in these stories today meets recognized professional standards. The stories you're about to hear, they're not just hopeful. I mean, they are hopeful, but they're not just hopeful. They reflect what's possible. What's possible when people finally have structure and education and support that is designed for fibromyalgia. This episode was recorded live, so if you hear references to emails or resources being sent out, you'll find those links in the show notes at fibromyalgiapodcast.com/178. And as always, the information shared here is educational and is not meant to be medical advice. Each graduate is sharing their own experience, and so results will vary based on your individual circumstances. And please take what they say as ideas you can talk over with your doctor. Listen with an open mind to the possibility that you can feel better than you do today, and with the possibility that there are some new ideas maybe mentioned in this episode you might want to talk with your doctor about. Let's begin. The first story I'm going to share a little bit differently. Sabina joined us from Germany, and while her story is incredibly important, the audio quality from her interview didn't come through clearly enough for a podcast replay. I don't want to skip what she shared because what she learned is something so many people need to hear. So I want to summarize the heart of what she shared. Sabina has lived with fibromyalgia for decades. And like many of us, she had become used to being that person that no doctor quite knew what to do with. Maybe you can relate. Over time, her symptoms continued getting worse and continued being dismissed as aging or stress. Fibromyalgia became a sort of catch all explanation for everything she was experiencing. So, experiencing a new pain, well, that's just your fibromyalgia showing up in a new way, right? I'm sure you've heard that too. Now, one of the biggest shifts for Sabina during our advisor program was realizing that not all of her pain was fibromyalgia pain. She had significant hip pain that had been overshadowed for years by her fibromyalgia diagnosis. And as she learned to listen to her body more carefully and to question some of those assumptions, it became clear that something else was also going on. Not that she didn't have fibromyalgia, she does, but that maybe there was something that had been missed. That clarity that there was something missing led her to pursue some further evaluation, and ultimately, she'll be having surgery to fix what's going wrong. One of the things that she said that really stayed with me was this: I realized I couldn't meditate my way out of my hip pain. That insight right there is so powerful. I can't meditate my way out of my hip pain. It needs surgery. Self-care, it matters. Nervous system regulation matters, especially if you have trauma in your past. Calming down that overactive nervous system is important for all of us, but so does accurate assessment and appropriate medical care. Coaching didn't replace that for her, but it did help clarify exactly what she needs. Sabina also talked about learning to pace herself differently, to ask for what she needs, particularly in relation to what she's going to need recovering from surgery, and to plan realistically for that recovery instead of just pushing through. As she's preparing for her hip surgery, she used these new skills to ask for things she never would have thought of before. Things like a private room so that she can recover better. I have loved hearing all the things she's been asking for, and I know it will help her improve her recovery time. Interestingly, Sabina's fibromyalgia impact questionnaire score actually increased during the program. Not because she was actually doing worse, but because she became more honest about what was really happening in her body. And that honesty became the turning point. During the graduation, I asked her about the fact that her score was worse at the end than her beginning score. And she said that honestly, her beginning score was probably wrong, that she thinks she had actually gotten better, but she was just so out of touch with what was really happening at the beginning of class that her score was not quite correct. Like I said, that honesty, it became a turning point for her. And I think it's important that you hear this. Sometimes the path to improvement requires you to take a step back. Sometimes We may even have to go a few steps back to heal so that then we can move forward. Sabina is continuing on into our coach program, and her story is an important reminder that progress sometimes begins with clarity, even when that clarity is uncomfortable. You will be hearing from Sabina again, and I am so excited to see what her score is after healing from surgery, after correcting what's going on with her hip, and after she recovers from that. I'm sure that score is going to be significantly different. Now, with that context, I want to introduce you to Sabina's coach, Kirsten, who you'll hear from next. This is where the live recording starts. All right. And now we are going to talk to Sabina's coach, who also happens to be in Germany. Kirsten, congratulations.
Thank you, Tammy.
As I read your bio, you already have a lot of experience when it comes to the body, right? Fitness, health, all of that. How have things changed for you learning more about the fibromyalgia piece of things specifically? Things like what were you able to do now that maybe you couldn't before?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I have been working in the health and fitness world for a long time as a gym owner, personal trainer, group fitness instructor, lots of different jobs. This year, actually, it's 30 years. I just counted. 30 years ago, I taught my very first aerobics class. I thought I had a pretty good understanding of health and my body in general. But fibromyalgia is different. I had to learn how to take care of my body and mind in a completely different way, a new way. For example, I've always avoided supplements in the past. Like, I always preferred eating an orange to taking a vitamin C pill.
Right.
But I learned in your programs that certain supplements can be quite helpful for giving me the energy that my body needs. And so I changed my mind. It happened like that with a lot of things. But all of the small and larger changes I've made over the past few years, they now allow me to lead a pretty active lifestyle again. I go on long hikes, I travel the world, as you mentioned before, I work full time, and I just do the things I truly enjoy.
Yes, I love that. I love that. And, we talked about some of that when I interviewed you for the Fibromyalgia podcast. Your husband had really wanted to go on a very special, very important hike, and you were able to do that with him. You want to mention that real quick?
Yeah, in October of 24, we did a 9-day hike at altitude. We went to Nepal to the Everest base camp, and I was perfectly fine and I could do that and enjoy all 9 days.
And I think you said you actually did better than some of the other non-fibro people on the hike.
Yes. It wasn't easy, like I prepared quite a bit, not just physically, mostly actually mentally. But if people are interested in that, they can just re-listen to our podcast from last year.
Exactly, exactly. I think it's cool to mention, though, because that is such an example of something that I think so often as people with fibromyalgia, we have sort of this box of what we think is possible. And that is so far outside the box that I love mentioning it. Not everybody's going to want to do that, and that's fine. But if you can hike Everest Base Camp, then somebody else might be able to go back to work again, right?
And actually, at the time when I hiked it, I thought I would hike for the fibro community, not just myself, because if I could do this, it would hopefully give other people, it would encourage them to try and do their own Everest Base Camp, whatever that might be for each person.
That's right. That's right. I love that. So today you are graduating as a coach. And as we just mentioned, you were Sabina's coach. Why did you choose to become a fibromyalgia coach? Who do you hope to help? And do you have a favorite client story you'd like to share?
So, when I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia in 2019, I realized pretty quickly that I couldn't keep working the way I had before. At that time, most of my clients were very fit, healthy, and my work as a personal trainer back then required a lot of physical energy from my own body, and that simply wasn't sustainable for me anymore. So over time, it became clear that something had to change. And a few years later, actually in 2022, I had this clear inner knowing that I wanted to bring two worlds together, like my long-standing background in health, fitness, movement, and all those things, and my own lived experience as a person living with fibromyalgia. So I did some research back then, and I became aware that there are not that many people out there who know about these two things, like the fitness, movement, health knowledge, and also the personal experience. I felt a very strong desire to step into that space and fill that gap. But I also knew that my own experience wasn't enough. So I needed to get a much deeper understanding of fibromyalgia. And so I decided to invest in my education and signed up first for the advisor program and then later for the coach program.
Yes, I love that. And you're so right. Like, there are a lot of people out there who can teach you all kinds of things about fitness. And there are people out there who can teach you about fibromyalgia, but they don't usually come together in that way. So I am thrilled for our community that we have you. You've got a, let's see, YouTube channel. Is that right? That you do videos primarily in German, though, right?
I have a couple of programs specifically for fibromyalgia in English and German. I do have a YouTube channel, but that's more for the wider community. But I have specific fibro friendly exercise programs if people are interested.
I love it. I love it. Now, since you started the advisor class, your fibromyalgia symptoms have improved by 80%, which sounds like it's a big number, but you only started off at 27.67. But 80% improvement from that means that your current score is only 5.5. So that is very, very low. How does that feel different from where you started?
It feels very, very different. Like you mentioned before, I started in a pretty good place, but I knew that what I was doing before I met you wasn't enough. My hardest time, if I look back, was between 2015 and 2017. I worked a lot. I owned a gym. I pretty much spent all my days and weekends working. And I had no idea that fibromyalgia even existed. I just knew that something was really wrong with my body, but I couldn't explain it. And that was incredibly frustrating back then. And so I learned that I had to make changes.
Yeah. So what were some of the things that helped you along your way?
I mean, by the time I started the advisor program in 22, I had already made some very big life changes. For example, I had moved to a country with a climate and lifestyle that felt much better for my body. Or I had sold a business that I truly loved, but that had also made me sick. And I shifted my entire work life online so I could work from home and have more freedom of time. I could take breaks when I needed, and I could just save some energy working from home. And none of these changes were easy, but I knew they were necessary. Or they were just good for me. But when I look back, there are actually two things that helped me the most. And the first one is I'm not afraid of change. Actually, I've always liked change. And when things stay the same for too long, then I feel stuck. So trying a new thing, like a new way of eating or experimenting with new routines or doing things differently than I've done before. To me, that doesn't feel scary. It actually feels more like a possibility to improve something. So, change is the first one. The second one that helped me feel better is that I love learning. So I'm genuinely a very curious person. I read a lot. I constantly take courses like this one and others.
Yeah.
And I keep looking for new insights, both for my own fibro journey, but also for my clients. Understanding what's happening in my body gives me a sense of control and trust. And it helps me make better decisions instead of just guessing. So I think that these two things, like the openness in general, like to change and to learning, that has been the biggest reason why my symptoms improved so much.
Yes, I love that so much because I think as people with fibromyalgia, it is really easy for us to develop a mindset that says, this is as good as it gets, right? Or there's nothing else to try because we are literally being told that. Sometimes even from our doctors, there's nothing else we can do for you. Get used to your new normal is one I heard all the time. But that openness to, maybe there is something else out there. Maybe there is one more thing to try. We won't know if it helps until we do try it. We can't possibly know until we try it if it's going to help or not. And then learning all we can because, like you said, we need to be active participants in our own healthcare and we can make better decisions when we have more information.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Well, thank you so much, Kirsten, for being here and for sharing and for all your work for coaching Sabina and all your other clients. What is next for you?
I just want to help more people and get those last 5.5% maybe down a little lower. I know what I have to work on. I know there is one specific area I have to work on.
Yes, absolutely. We all have our things, right? Like for me, I always talk on the podcast that for me, it's always going to be sleep. It's always going to be a sleep thing that I'm always like, okay, now I got to go to bed on time. It's just always going to be my thing. So, yep. I love that. I love that. Well, congratulations again, Kirsten. And if any of you are interested in learning more and checking her out, watch for the email that'll come after this event where you can learn more about our graduates in there. So congratulations. All right. Next up, we have Biani. So, Biani, you are in South Dakota, but you are originally from Mexico. You just happen to be in South Dakota.
Yes. Just happen to be around here for now.
That's right. Oh my goodness. Are you like freezing to death right now?
I just flew in yesterday and it was colder where I was. I was with my in-laws and it was way colder in St. Louis than here.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Yes, I have friends that are out that way and it's just like the temperatures that they've been sending me is just crazy.
It is. Yeah.
So when you and I first met, one of the things that you had mentioned was that you had dealt with another chronic illness for the last 15 years. And so when you got your fibromyalgia diagnosis, you did not want to wait around for 15 years. You wanted to get help right away. So share a little bit about that, if you would, and maybe the difference between what it was like when you didn't get the help right away versus what it was like this time to get that help.
Yeah, for sure. So I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism in 2011, I believe, towards the end of that year. I was 17 at the time. I was young. I was living my best life. And I was a very active teenager. Like I will be in all sorts of group schools. I'll be in drama club. I'll be doing all the things because I have all of this energy, right? So when I heard the diagnosis for the first time, it didn't ring to me. Like it didn't make sense for me that I needed medication for my entire life in order to be able to function. Because in my little 17 years old brain, I was functioning well. Obviously, I wasn't because I went to the doctor for a reason, right? But it took me a long time to realize the importance of my treatment. And I was surviving my condition. I think I was not really listening to what my body was saying. I didn't want it to see my symptoms as symptoms. So it was very easy for me to like skip my medication, like skip my doctor's appointments. And my parents are on the line and they're not going to let me lie that happened a lot. It took a lot of years. I want to say it took at least 10 years or more for me to switch my mindset into I need this medication in order to feel good. And what actually happened was that one day I was sitting at my consult with my doctor, and he was like, if you continue like this, you might risk your chances to become a mother one day. And that's when it clicked to me. And I was not near to meet my husband yet. I was not near to be married or to be thinking about I'm going to be a mom tomorrow or anything like that. But just having the idea on the background of risking that made me take a little bit more action into that just because it's my long life dream to be a mom. So I started to switch my mindset into that. And after that, I started to see for doctor to doctor and see which one was more aligned with my vision of what I wanted to do. And I had a lot more determination after that point into doing that. So whenever I was able to have my thyroid under control, that it took me about 5 years since the moment I decided to actually start doing something until I was actually like unstable, like my labs were in the typical range on my thyroid medication and everything. And I was able to be stable in one treatment and all of that. And that's when I was like, okay, like it worked. If I should have done this earlier, maybe could have prevented a lot of other conditions that came along the way because it's like it started with hypothyroidism, but right now it's not just hypothyroidism, right? I have other conditions that have add up to the package into what I was needed to have. And so when I first started to feel bad again and I got the diagnosis with fibromyalgia and I read how complex it was and I find out how little information was about it, I was like, okay, I'm not gonna wait this time. I have to do something right now and I have to start addressing this.
Yes, yes. And how has that been getting started right away? Like, I imagine you're feeling better faster.
Yeah. So earlier you mentioned like it's never too late to start. I can relate the other way. It's never too early to start. Like I was diagnosed on May at the end of May on 2025. And after that I was basically like trying to find all the courses I could find of. I couldn't find anything back in Mexico for fibromyalgia specifically. A lot of it has to do like I've never searched for this word before, right? So it was
Right.
harder to find information. Then I ran into the podcast and then I ran into the course and then I was like, maybe I can try this. And I made a decision, like I talked to my husband, we made a decision to make an investment on this and see how it goes, right? Because the doctor that diagnosed me didn't really much of a background of what it all came with the condition that I was being diagnosed with. So I wanted to have a plan and I didn't know how to get to the plan, but I knew I wanted to have a plan. I mean, some other things that we were also facing at the moment also had a lot of say into the decision on this.
Yes. I love that. I love that. So, when you started the advisor class, your score was 53, which was actually pretty typical. And over the last few months, your score has dropped by 48% down to 28. That's a big difference. And I bet you feel a lot different too.
Yeah, it is. It is a big difference. I think the biggest thing that was impacting me was missing work. I skipped work a lot when I was first being diagnosed, and I really, really wanted not to do that because I was given this amazing opportunity of being in a job site outside of my country, representing my country and the company to this big client and everything. So I wanted to do everything I could to make sure that I wasn't like lacking this big part of me that I really enjoy. I really love my job. So I wanted to do something in order to feel good with myself about how I was performing and also to feel good within my symptoms, right? Like within everything I was feeling at the moment. So I made a lot of changes, a lot of adjustments. It was really hard to make adjustments because I was trying not to take medications at all. I'm not a big medications fan, even when I first got the diagnosis and they prescribed me with, I think it was Cymbalta and gabapentin. I was walking to my board of doctors about like what the complications might be with taking this medications and how do they align with my future plans of like growing my family and things like that. It was just they didn't match. So I needed to find something that I could do that wasn't gonna be like on the way of actually achieving my goal of stop missing work, feeling better, and being able to soon uh, start to plan on growing my family.
That's right. That's right. And you and I talked a lot about that, knowing that you're going to be growing your family, being pregnant, not wanting to get on medications that then you have to come off of or that might hurt the possibility of pregnancy or hurt the baby. So that really changed a lot for you, how you would go about managing your fibromyalgia. So if you would share a little bit, like what did you do? What worked for you? I mean, almost 50% improvement is big. So
Yeah.
what did you do to accomplish that?
So I basically took everything you taught us that can be done that is not medication and did it all at the same time. So I work with my coach a lot on my sleep hygiene. With my husband and I worked so hard into modifying how we were going into bed in the night, like darkening the area we were sleeping. I added like a wetted blanket to my sleep routine. I have a sun clock that wakes me up in the morning. I have all of these magic lotions that I can use. Like I have magnesium, I soak every night. I have CBD lotions that I use on a regular basis, not just like when I'm feeling like bad. She and I developed this emergency kit that I take everywhere, and it's different from when I'm in home and when we are traveling for work, because we do travel a lot for work. So we needed to adjust all that. The sleep, I think it's one of the biggest one. We also work along with my nutriologist to kind of make some adjustments in the diet. We also modify the way we cook. Like instead of cooking every day, I cook one day for several amount of days, but I cook the same meal so that I don't burn out myself into cooking all these different meals at the same time. We no longer do grocery shopping. We order all of our grocery shopping so I don't have to spend energy on that. We have a cleaning schedule so that I don't clean everything in just one day. My husband takes care of all the laundry, so I never have to go down the steps or up the stairs or carry all the laundry down the stairs or up the stairs, because that used to be like very bad for my back. He does like the carpet vacuuming, like all of the high demand small activities that you could think like, oh, anybody can do it. We cannot, right? So I
Yeah.
think I improve a lot with like the elimination process, but not like just on my food, in overall activities I do in my life. Like I don't drive every day to work. My husband is the one that drives the majority of the time. I drive like occasionally or whenever it's necessary, if he has to do something else after or I have to do something else after, we combine things there. But I think the biggest was like trying to do all at the same time. It's staying consistent into doing it all at the same time. And try new things and see if it works and make myself the purpose and the goal to actually do them. For example, what you were saying about the soaking in magnesium salts and Epsom salts, in your podcast you were talking about it and you were like, well, I wanted to have it all days, but can I really have them all days? Like
Yeah.
it's a it's a long task to do it. You have to clean the bathtub, you have to fill the bathtub, you have to get in the bathtub, then you have to,
It's a
it's a
whole
whole thing.
thing. Yes.
Yeah, it is a whole thing. But I didn't want it to take more supplements or medications. So I need to put time in my schedule to do that and make sure I do it at least every day I'm home. If I'm traveling, I have other alternatives of things I do, like I take long run showers, followed by magnesium lotions and things like that. But if I'm home, I'm gonna make the time to do it. So
Yes.
I think it's there's no right recipe. It was just everything.
Yes, yes. I love that. I love that. And it's so funny because when people will attend this event, Sometimes I'll get a comment afterwards, yeah, but what did they really do? And it's like, no, this is what we really did. And it really helped that much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
it was great. Yeah, I love it. I'm so grateful for it. There's a lot of room for improvement. One day I'll be a mom and I'll be able to try all the medications if it's needed. But it was so great to know that I could do big improvement without medications. It doesn't stop for me having a flare or anything like that, but I know when I'm gonna have it. I have the tools to treat it when I'm gonna have it, and that like has a lot of it has a more calmer mindset in our home now, knowing what to do. Mhm.
Yes, because you have a plan, you have a routine, you know how to get back to your baseline. Yeah, that changes a lot having that stability, right?
Yeah, for sure. A lot.
Yeah. Now you're going to be joining our coach class too. Have you thought at all about like who you want to help and things like that?
I think we talked a little bit about it the last time we talked over the phone. I think I want to encourage like people like recently diagnosed to get help as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Also, like people that already know they have another like chronic condition involved. I probably have one of them, and I can help with that as well. And of course, I wanna like people that don't wanna try any medications for any reason, like they've tried them all, they are tired of them, or they wanna be moms and they don't want any of that to be like affecting them. I have so much research that I did during all these months with you and Brenda, and I think that's probably gonna be my focus. And I
Hmm.
think it aligns with me because I'm like I say, I'm not a big my parents were never like, your head is hurting, take an aspirin. Like, we were always like trying the alternative way. So it kind of fit very well with
Yes.
this pad. Yeah.
Yes. And I can see you. I mean, after you have your babies and after you're a mom, I could see, I mean, I have people who message me all the time, I want to have a baby someday. How do I
Yeah.
manage my fibromyalgia and how do I go through
Mm,
pregnancy? I can definitely see you helping
mm.
those people too.
And it's yeah, it's scary because when I didn't when I haven't found you there yet, or I haven't found Brenda yet, I went to like Facebook support groups and they are not so nice. I remember crying one day with my husband because I was like, I didn't know what was gonna happen, right? It was like kind of pushing away our plans, or we didn't know what was gonna do with our plans. And I posted a question like, "Hey, any fibro people have experience with pregnancy? Like, what do you guys think?" And I got the worst responses,
Oh,
like,
no.
don't even think about it, get a dog instead. Like people,
Oh my goodness.
and it's important to know that how much this condition can affect like your mentality, and we're obviously always like on the negative mindset of things, so we tend to be negative about everything. Like, if I cannot deal with myself, how am I gonna deal with this much more, whatever that much more is, right? So I really think I do want to focus on that because there was not much information, and
Oh,
Brenda and you did an amazing job supporting me into researching what was good, what was not. And my doctor also, I don't want to leave her out. Like Emily, my doctor here in South Dakota, she was very good at answering all my questions that I would text her like almost every day. Like, can I take this supplement? We saw this at class. Is it okay if I try it? Like, and things like that. So yeah.
that's awesome. That's awesome. Now, we can't not talk about Brenda. What was it like working with her as your coach?
Oh, it was amazing. I felt like she's so sweet and she's so organized. Like, I felt like I've known her forever. She was so great. She was so smooth. She was so open. All my questions, like I did, she even helped me do some research in some of the questions that I have. She was always keeping in mind my goals, and she was always like, "Ask your doctor first, and then we try this." And she was very good at following up, like whatever we have decided to try. We even had some couple sessions. Kyle joined us for, I think, one of the calls, and on our final call of the 9 sessions, he had some inputs on that in there as well, and she was so open to help him him being my main support system because
Right.
we're together all the time.
Yeah.
So I think it was amazing. And I remember reading her bio from your webpage and saying, I think this is the right match for me because she also has some other conditions and she's a
Yep.
mom and her daughter has fibro and she just became a mom. So it was a lot of things that make click for me to work with her, and I just loved her.
That's so great. Brenda was one of the people in that very first class who graduated 10 years ago. So,
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I know. She's
oh,
amazing. She's the
she
best.
is. She is. She is. Well, thank you so much, Biani.
Thank you,
Congratulations.
Danny.
I'm so glad we get to keep working together in our coach class. Y'all will see Biani again. Thank you again. All right. Now we are off to Florida. We are going to meet Megan, who has been interpreting, along with Katie, who's interpreting Megan's, so she doesn't have to do everything all at the same time. Hello, Megan.
Hello.
So, I would love to talk to you about the fact that you improved so much before you even started the class. And you mentioned to me that you thought just wasn't possible to get any better. Like, you're doing so good. How could you improve even more? Yeah, talk about that.
Yeah, so I'm very much a self-starter, a very individual, like I can get things done on my own kind of person. I had found the podcast, I had listened to every episode, I think most of them twice. I had read your book. I had made so many changes. I went from being completely disabled by my fibromyalgia to able to work my demanding job and balance handling my dog and my family and work and all of the things. And along the way, I found some other conditions that were going on, including some genetic stuff and some other autoimmune and some other issues that were going on. And I thought that I had done everything I could do to manage my fibromyalgia and that this was just as good as it gets because of some of these other conditions, that there was nothing left to do.
Can't change your genetics. So I guess here we are, right?
Exactly.
But that wasn't true at all. You actually improved. You started the class. You are okay if I share your scores, right? You started the class at 13.5, which is amazing, but you improved by 40% and you're now at 8.17. So, yeah, there is always room to improve.
Yeah, and there's some things still that I haven't had a chance to try that came up working with my coaches, working through the class, that just that waiting period of not doing it all at the same time. I just haven't gotten to everything yet, but I think that score is going to keep going down.
I love that. I love that. And the fact that there are so many things that you could try, that you actually have things on the list that you haven't even tried yet, right? I think so often as patients, we feel like we don't have options and that we've already tried everything. No, 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 that is not true. Now, you said coaches, and if anybody happened to catch that, you actually had the opportunity to work with two different coaches, one before you joined the advisor class, and then one during the class. What was that like with your different coaches? And do you have any advice for someone who might be looking for a coach, wondering, how do I choose?
Yeah, so I worked with Kim for 9 sessions before I joined the advisor program. And then during class, I worked with Giselle and Tammy. We had talked before class started, and I was just having the hardest time deciding between the two of them, listening to both of them in the summit and doing consults with both of them. And I could not decide. And it's funny because they are so, so different. Like, they could not have a more opposite approach to coaching, and they were both exactly what I needed. And working with them in the order that I did was perfect because I did some of the mindset shifts, some of the nutrition shifts to give me the energy, to give me that focus and that clarity through my brain fog to then be ready to do some of the more cognitive heavy and specific procedures for supplements, for deciding changes to my healthcare team, some of those things that really took a clear head and focused energy. I then had that and was ready to do that with Giselle. especially with her nursing background, learning a lot about how some of my other conditions were interacting with my fibromyalgia and doing that other level of work where Kim has the background in nutrition and sleep and Giselle's nursing background. It was exactly what I needed when I needed it.
Awesome. Awesome. Let's be honest, you kind of can't go wrong. We've got amazing people.
No, nothing but amazing things to say about both of my coaches, about you and your program as well.
Oh, thanks. Thanks. So, what did you do to improve your scores?
Yeah, so I mentioned briefly supplements. There were a handful of supplements that I ended up kind of stacking together to really help with my energy and my brain fog. And then a lot of mindset shifts with how I do things, how I go about my self-care because I am that very type A self-motivated personality. My self-care list had become more of a chore than actual care. And we did a lot of work, Kim and I, with changing how I approach my self care, a lot of work on sleep hygiene, a lot of work on how I feed myself both at home and when I'm traveling for work, because there's a lot of complications with how I feed myself when I'm traveling for work. So we worked through a lot of that and just really my approach to life of scheduling downtime and actually making that an appointment in my calendar to rest was a game changer for me because I am that person who will book 3 things in the same time slot and hope for the best, like or have a plan to be like, "Okay, I'm gonna go to this thing, I'm gonna get there early, leave early, and then I'm gonna go late and stay late at the next one," like, just getting every ounce of every day and scheduling that rest and making it something that wasn't, "Oh, I'll get to it when I'm tired." Like, because when I got tired, I'd be like, "Well, there's still things to do."
That's right. That's right. I recently recorded a podcast episode, and this is one of the things that I talked about. Rest isn't something that you do when there's nothing else to do, because
Right.
there's always something else to do.
Yeah. And then Giselle and I worked really hard on changing my medical team, changing some of my
Yeah.
supplements. We worked a lot on my gut health, which has been amazing. Just having more like less stomach upset, eating more regularly, and just changing my healthcare team. I'm actually changing doctors next month. That Giselle and I worked quite a few sessions on what I really wanted and needed out of my doctor because I knew I wasn't getting what I needed, but figuring out what I was looking for was something that she was a lot of help with, and I'm really hopeful that's going to be a better fit for me.
Yes, I think that's great. I think that's great. So, two things that you said that I want to share for folks that I think kind of illustrate the whole thing here. You mentioned that you accomplished more with Kim on your sleep in 3 months than you had for the whole rest of your life trying to improve your sleep.
Yeah, yeah, trying to do that on my own was just not working. I got sleep studies done, nothing showed up. And my last sleep study was when my fibro pain was still really bad, which thankfully has not been my main symptom or my main concern in a few years now. It's really been that energy and that brain fog that were my big concerns. But my last sleep study was before my pain was under control, and they just kind of wrote it off like, you're in pain, it's going to wake you up. Like, sorry, get used to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it just never really got better. Like, here's some medications. They made me super groggy. It made it hard to get up in the morning. I was like, I'd rather just have bad sleep than not be able to get up and do the things I need to do in the morning. And I was just suffering through bad sleep.
Gosh, that just hurts hearing it. The other thing that you said that I love was that you think you have more energy now than you did when you were a teenager.
I mean, I was always kind of like Biani said, like I was always that active kid. I was the varsity athlete in high school. I did competitive gymnastics outside of school for 9 years. I had trained for 18. I always had a reason for why I was tired, why I was pushing through. I worked 2 jobs. I worked as a gymnastics coach and in a busy restaurant. I had my school sports in the fall, and then I had my year-round sport through the club. So at one point, I was doing 2 competitive gymnastics teams at the same time. There was always a reason for me to be tired, for me to be dragging and just surviving and pushing through. it didn't really click until after I finished high school, went off to college, was no longer doing sports, was down to one part-time job, and I was still feeling more and more tired and just worse and worse. And I was like, okay, there's not a reason anymore. Something else is going on.
Yeah.
But still, it took me another 4 or 5 years after that before I had my first true fibro flare to really get diagnosed and start doing something to manage it.
I think that, our culture is so busy that I think it's really easy for all of us to be like, oh, well, that's why I'm tired.
Mm.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, it was like a
So,
badge of honor to be tired. Like I did all these
right.
things.
Exactly. Exactly. And if you're propping yourself up with, fewer hours of sleep and more coffee is like you said, a badge of honor. No, folks, no. Is there anything specific that you want to mention to the folks who might be listening in on this that really helped you with either of those things, your sleep or more energy?
So with more energy, it was two very specific supplements. For me, it was the D-ribose and the MCT oil. For one for energy and one for brain fog were really helpful. I also started taking GABA and glycine for my sleep, but honestly, that was not really the biggest change for my sleep. It was fixing my serotonin and my norepinephrine levels combined with the sleep hygiene. And I had tried the sleep hygiene before, and I was like, oh, that doesn't work for me. Like, that's a waste of time. Like, I've been there, done that. Like, what's next? But it was because I didn't have the right chemical soup in my brain to support sleep. But if I had just done the supplements, I don't think that alone would have given me the improvement. I really think it was the combination of doing those two things at the same time that really made the difference.
Yes, I would absolutely agree with that. Sleep is so freaking complicated.
Well,
I mean, there are so many things that go into what makes good sleep or even measuring what's good or bad. Scott and I talk about that often. It's like, oh, goodness, I got 23 minutes of deep sleep, but I feel great today. How is that possible? So yeah, I think you're right that it does have to be a combination of stuff. Yeah. Now, you are also going to be joining our coach program in a few months after you finish a couple other things, because Megan always has 15 things at once. I would love for you to share a little bit about who you hope to help.
Yes. So as we've seen, I'm learning American Sign Language. I'm currently an interpreting student full time, and I really want to coach deaf and hard of hearing individuals in American Sign Language. But I also really want to coach any client in English or sign language who is living in a place where there are often natural disasters, whether that's earthquakes, wildfires, hurricanes, tornadoes, any other emergency that could happen. Of how do you respond to that disaster? What do you do beforehand to be prepared if you need to evacuate, if you need to shelter in your home without power? What are all of the things that you really need so that you can survive that emergency without having a fibromyalgia flare? My background is in emergency management. That's what I do for a living, and I really want to bring that into my coaching practice.
That just makes me so excited. Both of those things. Having an ASL coach obviously would be amazing, because people who can't hear also need coaching if they have fibromyalgia. But also just that everything that you just said. I mean, the thought that we could go through a disaster and not end up in a fibro flare, like even that concept blows my mind a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I am sorry. I am living proof of that. I mean, I have gone and worked a hurricane for 2 weeks out in a field, living in responder housing that was built in something that was literally a field hours before we got there, communal housing, beds that aren't mine, doing manual labor for long days, and I did that without a flare. It is absolutely possible if you know what you need before it happens.
That's right. That's right. And when I think about like just even how I manage my stuff, right? If there's no electricity, that means no hot baths, no heating pad.
Yep.
Right? There's so much stuff that when we're in our own space, like at home in our own space with all our things, we can manage our fibro pretty well. But when all of that changes, then what? And so I am super excited for you to be able to bring that to our community and teach me and our other coaches as well. This honestly is something that people should be aware of, right? If you've got a fire evacuation plan for your house, you should also have a plan for how to manage your chronic illness.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we see it so much in the special needs shelters and in just those stories from the public post-disaster of just hearing what they've been through, and to be able to help people prepare and to have a better or safer experience is really close to my heart.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you've even talked about organizing some more community type things too for how to better support the chronic illness community through disasters. Am I making that up or am I remembering that right?
So I'm definitely working on some stuff with the ASL community, with the deaf community for disaster preparedness. It would be really interesting to bring some of the chronic illness community into something similar as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here, Megan, for bringing all your skills and expertise to our community, and congratulations.
Thank you.
As you've been listening to these stories, I hope at least one moment stood out to you. Every graduate that you heard from today had a different starting point. They had different symptoms and different goals, and yet there were still clear patterns across their experiences. None of these stories were about pushing harder or forcing improvement or finding that magic bullet. They were about education, pacing, advocacy, and learning how to work with their bodies instead of against them. Sometimes progress looks like feeling better quickly. Sometimes it looks like uncovering what's really going on. And sometimes it begins with simply realizing that better is possible. I always say that if your Fibromyalgia Impact Questionnaire score isn't 0 yet, there is still room for improvement. And finding improvement does not require you to be perfect. If you are interested in the programs these graduates completed, we are currently enrolling for our next class. I also recently held a virtual open house where I covered the 6 questions everyone always asks. Things like tuition, what results can I expect, and couldn't I just do this on my own? I'll have a link to that recording of that virtual open house in today's show notes at fibromyalgiapodcast.com/178. And if you need right now just some individual support, I invite you to schedule a consultation with one of our certified fibromyalgia coaches like Kirsten or our student coaches in training like Sabina and Biani. No matter what your next step is, I want you to hear me clearly about this. You are not a hopeless case. Fibromyalgia is real, and so is the possibility for meaningful improvement. Most importantly, you don't have to figure it out alone. There are people who understand this, who have found ways to feel better, and can help you do the same. Thank you so much for joining me for our 12th Stories of Hope here on the podcast, and I'll see you back here next time. And that wraps up another episode of the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm your coach, Tammy Stacklehouse. For daily doses of hope, inspiration, and practical advice, come hang out with me on Facebook. Visit facebook.com/fibrocoach to find my personal coaching page and connect with me directly. To find the show notes, additional resources, or to schedule a consultation with me or one of my coaches, visit fibromyalgiapodcast.com.